A provincial airport in Britain, most mornings.
Passengers in possession of boarding cards, please proceed down through gate 2.
The usual flight calls. The usual passenger reactions. Much the same as any other airport. But there are differences. No money or credit cards change hands for tickets.
Would all chaperone personnel who have checked in with their representative please check in now at the Bryman Airways check-in.
They're bound for a destination which is off the usual package tour beat. Aberdeen Airport is the scene, and these men are commuters heading for their place of work.
Presently 50 miles south of Sunbury. The weather at Unst is very clear and bright, but there's a very strong westerly wind, so there'll be some turbulence during the last stages of the flight.
Take the cup back. That's fine.
Destination? No, this is just a staging post. The first part was by fixed wing. Now they have another flight to take, by helicopter, commuting a further 100 miles out over the North Sea. Their place of work is on any one of the 3 platforms that, together, make up the Ninian offshore oil field. These platforms are, in effect, energy-producing factories, which, like any factory, need to be staffed 24 hours every day, 7 days every week, 52 weeks every year, to produce 1/5 of Britain's oil output. We are going to glimpse life and work on board. These arrivals are just part of the workforce, part of the crew on one of the 3 platforms. This journey has become fortnightly routine for the old hands and will soon become routine for the fresh faces.
Joe Smith, contact on 231. Joe Smith, contact on 231.
Mr. Ellington, you're a new arrival on board. This is your boarding card. Take note of the particulars that are on it, and you'll see the safety officer at 4:30 this afternoon. Okay, thanks very much.
For 2 weeks, this will be where they get their heads down. A shared cabin like this on Ninian Southern. It's to much the same high standard as those on the other 2 platforms. Standards of accommodation are, in fact, those of a good-class cruise ship. While some have joined the platform direct from shore, others have transferred from either of the other 2 platforms on the interfield taxi. Responsible for the helideck is the helicopter landing officer.
My main job really is to make sure that the helideck and the surrounding area is clear for helicopters to land. People come downstairs to the transit. If these people haven't been on board before, they're taken to one side and we go through the procedures for emergency drills, etc., platform alarms.
I like to get people together on the first day on the platform as soon as possible after they arrive on board. That way we can make sure that if any emergency happens on board, we can ensure that you know exactly what we want you to do on board Ninian Central.
This is your muster point here. When the alarm goes off, you meet here.
Okay.
Everybody musters here.
Everybody has a place. Everybody knows his place in the appointed life capsule. There's also the reassurance of the standby boats permanently in the field. Safety is paramount, and consequently, this is probably one of the safest places to work. But what is the general scene out here?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you aboard the central platform. I hope you've enjoyed your flight. I'd like to give you a brief picture of life on board a North Sea platform and Chevron's Ninian Central platform in particular.
The sea below them is some 400 feet deep, and the oil reservoir 10,000 feet below that.
The Ninian field, and we have the northern platform and the southern platform. The field is about 12 miles in length and about 4 miles across. We're situated, as you have flown this morning, we're situated about 240 miles northeast of Aberdeen and about 80 miles due east of Shetland.
This one is central. This is southern. And this is northern. Based on these three platforms, their job will be to help in the production of about 200,000 barrels of oil per day. Each platform performs the same basic functions, so at any one time the crews are engaged in similar tasks which cover a wide range.
Today, 353 people on the platform, and of that 353, about 70 are Chevron personnel. The rest are made up of various contractors' workforces.
Like any factory or production facility, all the work can be demanding.
Yeah, it's hard work with the 12-hour shifts we do, but I've adjusted and I don't mind. I look forward to going home.
What sort of man takes to this life?
He's got to be able to mix and to be acceptable to a group. It's surprising what a cross-section of people you've got. School teachers, ex-postmen, we've got people from down in the mines, we've got a lot of...
Perhaps this is a case of the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Today that means school teachers to ex-naval types. The activities of over 300 men have to be coordinated, half of them on shift at any one time. They must not tread on each other's toes. Onshore, their activities would probably be spread over several acres. Here, they have a few thousand square feet, honeycombed, split over 4 or 5 levels, in which they have to live as well. Like any factory, each platform has a manager, the offshore installation manager. He has the overall responsibility for everything that happens on his platform.
Every morning we have a meeting where all the department supervisors, the heads of departments, come in and we discuss what's gone on the previous day to ensure that the coordination between the departments is good and that the activities that are expected to go on during this coming day are known to all the departments so that no one does something which would interfere with someone else's activity.
But you just pick up your whip nice and easy.
Yeah, well, obviously the drillers are going to be the only ones that could possibly...
At this time every morning, similar coordination is happening on companion platforms.
Right. So you've only really got to consider the drillers, and as soon as they get over this tubing run...
Which I think they're going to finish, well, possibly today.
Right. So hopefully, what NP13's next for workover. Hopefully, if you can fit in with drilling, you might be able to manage something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll have to speak with them.
Drilling deck activity is the scene that comes to most minds when thinking of platforms. However, once the wells have been drilled, the function of the drillers is one of maintenance. The drama of making a strike has gone. They work over the wells to keep them in good order, a routine. In the production of oil, when the oil is actually flowing, there's little to be seen, particularly of the product itself.
Pete Rawson, phone 231. Pete Rawson.
The output is seen only through instrumentation, console, a duty controller, dials, screens, LEDs, printouts, telephones, etc., etc. These are the evidence of the flow. Drilling crews might be considered as the infantry, the spearhead, and they account for about 15% of the crew. The rest are organized around producing the oil and necessary supporting services.
Malcolm, is that you? Any sparks there, Chris? Okay.
All the basic trades and skills are present. The organization is really a microcosm, an industrial village compressed into the confines of a large hotel. Over 300 people on each platform, everyone with a job to do. Here, everybody is somebody. Somebody is making modifications. Somebody is checking samples.
Okay.
Somebody has to take care of the decor. Sea air is rough on paintwork. All in all, because of the environment's hostility, prompting every precaution, platforms are very safe places to work.
Okay, Alec, you've got something in your eye?
Yes, good. That's one. Okay, let's have a look. See.
However, there is the usual crop of aches, pains, and injuries. Somebody, the medic, is in attendance on every platform.
Just a little bit cold, it won't hurt you. Okay. Fine. How does that feel?
Yeah.
And somebody else is in contact with Ninian House, Aberdeen base.
And the RFDs, will they be on today's boat? Yeah. Yeah, and that'll be the 2W Mars, 22909. Yeah, and 22766. Yeah, that sounds good then. Okay, cheers now, Jeff.
Supplies come out daily.
And of course, our sea's not going to go down until well into the early evening, I don't think.
Yet somebody else is on traffic control.
If he's close by, we might just ask him to come in and just run past the platform.
Aye, okay, that's, give us a ring anyway later on, we'll look at it and I'll talk to Simon.
Okay.
Somebody unloads. Somebody is telling Ninian House what's being sent back to the beach on the return trip.
I was going to tell you that NO22937, the quick start ballast, we'll send in a sample to you. Okay.
Somebody, too, has radio traffic with contractors' vessels alongside.
Thar's Control, Ninian South.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, could you give me an estimated time on the next bell change, please?
Next bell change will be taking place in 8.5 hours' time.
Roger, thanks very much indeed.
Somebody has to sort out a multitude of minor domestic logistics.
No, that's all. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
A good camp boss knows that the way to a man's heart starts with a good plateful, a varied plateful.
The main course today will be green pea and ham soup, followed by grilled haddock, maitre d' hotel, suprema chicken chasseur, roast leg of lamb mint sauce, broad beans in parsley sauce with Macedonia veg, fried potatoes, boiled potatoes, followed by a mixture of sweets, which is hot, cold, ice cream.
And, as a head waiter might say, a choice from our selection of prime cheeses. The need for a balanced diet is catered for if the individual cares to exercise his discretion. In that the caterers have to provide a main meal every 6 hours to cope with round-the-clock working, the distinction between breakfast, lunch, dinner and supper can get blurred. One man's dinner time is another man's breakfast time.
You get it set up and use it like that.
300 or more men on each of 3 platforms require a considerable amount of catering. And that is catering in the broadest sense. All the accommodation and its services. A morning meeting shares its concern between barrels per day and such things as fresh water and the laundry.
By then we should be in a position to find out how we're going with the other 2 water makers, and when we're in a position to actually make up, then we'll put the laundry back into service again.
Where else at work could you find a 24-hour laundry service? Off-duty, on-board life is in many ways the same as in an hotel. Most of the domestic chores are done for you. Reminders of home do come in many small ways. Echoes of wifely or motherly admonishments to respect the floors. And things can't just be left lying around out here either.
Running a rig is like being the manager of a hotel. We like to think we're running a top-class establishment. Part of my job is to run the bonded shop for the lads. I think any small shopkeeper ashore would love a shop like this because I've got a 360-man captive clientele.
In off-shift time, cabins are quiet havens, but there is a recreational side to life here which can be for some a broader experience.
Well, in terms of entertainment, I'm bored when I go home because I see some old movies on television. And I see, when I'm offshore, I see the best films, I see the best videos, and sports.
Gives me to do any hobbies that I've got over a 2-week period while I'm at home, which I wouldn't be able to do if I was at home on a normal working week. In fact, I find it quite a bonus getting 2 weeks off in every fall.
Recreation is not confined to indoors. With the 2 shifts going midday to midnight, everyone sees daylight. For some, the night time, particularly the brief darkness of midsummer, has its unique atmosphere.
I could waste quite a lot of time watching the sea. I love watching the sea. I don't get out of the office very much, but when I do get out, I find it most interesting as to what is going on around us. And I find it very relaxing.
This unique atmosphere is one created by the elements and man. Out here, neither rests. Is this the perfect life? Surely there must be something missing.
I think they miss female companionship. I think they miss an occasional convivial evening of drink. And I think they miss the freedom of movement, that is, sort of being able to walk down the road, whereas the furthest you can walk here is about, what, 75 yards.
But despite the isolation, home can seem quite close.
My job on Ninian Central is to distribute the mail on behalf of all platform residents. It's a very important link for the offshore personnel, the mail coming to the field. And what is important also is it's a very quick service in that if you were to post a letter on Thursday, it would be here on Friday on the platform, which is the best, I believe, you could hope for.
An STD call is even quicker.
I'll be home on Wednesday if you can pick me up as normal, will they? everything's all right at home. Oh, did the builder turn up to start the work on the house? Oh, that's good. That's fine. Oh, great stuff. I'll see you on Wednesday, okay? Bye.
Come Wednesday, he'll be one of the names on the flight list bound for the beach.
Helicopter will be on the deck in 5 minutes, lads. Come and get your cards. Frank McLaughlin, Cliff Hewitt, Ken Pomeroy, Larry Vodden and Steve Chang.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Ken. Have a nice time off. Okay, cheers.
People keep ringing me up all the time and saying, when's the chopper due, Neil? When's the chopper due? You know, I get about 100 phone calls in about 1 hour.
Though eager to get home, would they change places with friends ashore?
I wouldn't swap my lifestyle for theirs. I'm happy. And they're very envious of my lifestyle. I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
I think the average man can do well out here. Well, yes, we do actually tend to lead 2 lives. Half your life is spent offshore in a working environment, and the other half, you're a totally different person. You're at home.
I would hope to be here as long as the oil's here, which is another 30, 40 years. So it's a job for life.
Stuff of legend. Its fickle temperament and awesome power have always challenged both the cunning and the strength of men. And yet, it has had its conquerors, rare men of keen vision, who know they must approach the sea with the great respect it commands. Three-quarters of the energy used by modern societies is produced by oil and natural gas. Because there is a limited supply, these resources are very much in demand. Great Britain, with little oil of its own, depended on other nations to meet its needs. When the price it paid for imported oil began to skyrocket, Britain's continuing efforts to find and produce fuel in waters off its shores grew even more important.
We recognized it was going to be very important for us, first of all, from the point of view of making us less dependent on other people for our oil supplies. I think we've got to recognize certain things. One is that energy is going to become scarce, certainly for a period. Energy, therefore, is going to cost more. We ought, therefore, to be looking at ways of economizing in energy. And the other thing is that we have got to develop existing known resources which so far haven't been touched.
The North Sea, cold, forbidding, and yet Britain's best hope for energy independence. There might be oil here, but the problem is to find it, to get it out of the earth, and to bring it to the shore, despite winds of 120 knots, despite waves of 100 feet and more. A plan must be devised, how best to challenge the awesome power of the sea and win from it the oil a nation needs. The maps of the geologists show folds and wrinkles beneath the ocean floor. They are only seismic shadows, revealing strata that might bear oil. They tell us only where to look. To know for sure, we drill. The Ocean Cokeway is a semi-submersible drilling vessel, one of several specially designed craft punching holes in the North Sea floor. March 1974, over 100 miles from the nearest shore, it drills to a depth of 10,000 feet and discovers oil. More wells are drilled to evaluate the field, to determine its size and shape and the nature of the oil it holds. It It's high-grade, light crude, perhaps 1 billion barrels recoverable, in a field that extends to another area held by British Petroleum and the Ranger Group. Development will be risky, the cost will be high. Sharing in the enterprise, taking the risks with Chevron, are Imperial Chemical Industries, Murphy Otico, and Burma Oil. Burma's interest is later acquired by British National Oil.
After the original discovery and early stages of development work, Chevron was asked to become the operator, and we moved very rapidly to bring together the people, the technical talent from various parts of the company to begin the major stages of design and construction.
To drill an oil well, you need a place to stand. On land, that's easy. A whole continent can be your platform. Wells can be widely spaced, directly over the areas they are to produce. An offshore platform produces from a wide area, with wells angled out in every direction, sometimes reaching as far as 2.5 miles. But these platforms must be constructed at great cost. A careful analysis of each field tells us how to produce the whole reservoir from the fewest number of these expensive platforms.
The Ninian oil field is a rather long, narrow oil field. Perhaps would best be described as an irregular oval shape. Early in the game, it was decided that it would most likely be developed by a 3-platform configuration, and it became apparent that the central platform would have to be the largest.
And it would be immense. The diameter of its base, 140 meters, about 1.5 times the length of an American football field. From the bottom of its skirt to the top of the drilling derricks would be over 70 stories, some 200 feet taller than the Washington Monument. It would be the largest movable object ever constructed. It would be outfitted with most of its equipment before being floated out to sea like a massive ship, 7 times the weight of the aircraft carrier Enterprise. It would sit in over 460 feet of water, anchored to the bottom by its own weight, more than 600,000 tons of concrete and steel. The southern portion of the field would be produced from another 700-foot-tall platform, this one made of steel. It would float to its North Sea station on 2 pontoon-like legs and would be secured to the bottom by pilings. A third structure, also steel, would be placed in the narrower northern section of the field. Oil from fields in the North Sea must eventually be piped ashore. The nearest suitable landfall was here, in the Shetland Islands. Shetland is a small place, a few low islands bravely holding out against the sea. Its people are farmers and fishermen, fiercely proud of their heritage and determined to preserve their home and their ways. They realized that some kind of development in the Shetlands would be necessary to support the fields 100 miles off their shores. But they were not sure that industry shared their respect for the simple beauty of their homeland.
Meeting the concerns of the Shetland Islanders about the impact of the oil and what the pipelines and the terminals and all the other problems might be was a set of problems, really, that took us, well, perhaps over a year to sort out.
When plans were being made for a Shetland terminal, the Shetlanders themselves made the rules. They would work with the industry. The facility could be built, they said, but only here at Solemn Voe, an isolated, abandoned military base. Agreed. And they would own the land and receive a fee for its use. New housing would be in scale and character with the old, and would eventually revert to them. Agreed. Pipelines on land from the eastern landfall to the terminal on the western shore would be underground. Agreed. Environmental studies would be made, and fish and wildlife habitats would remain as unaffected as humanly possible. Agreed.
we had to pay enormous attention to all the environmental factors. Britain is extremely conscious about the environment. Indeed, we pride ourselves on what we've done to protect it.
The industry, I think, is responsible and obviously doesn't want to disturb the ecology or to spill oil or tear up the countryside or spoil the beautiful scene that the Shetland is.
So we did pay enormous attention to the environment, and I think most people would agree that we had acted sensibly and wisely.
Time was precious, planning essential. The Ninian partners would spend $3 billion, but would receive no income from this whole massive project until it was complete.
We have the platforms offshore, the facilities that have to go on the platforms, the pipeline, the terminal, their gasoline plants, liquid storage facilities, terminals for shipping oil.
We have some 61 separate packages. Each one is a complicated package, and each one has to be there and be placed in exactly the time that it's expected to be.
It really is like an enormous jigsaw puzzle with parts and pieces coming from all over the world into the Aberdeen or into the Shetland Islands for final assembly and load out into barges and platforms that go into the North Sea.
All the pieces of the puzzle will be built at the same time. At Sollum Voe in the Shetlands, construction begins with 1,100 men. That number will soon grow to nearly 3,000, building a terminal that could initially handle almost 1 million barrels of oil a day from Ninian and other fields in the East Shetland Basin. Here, oil and gas will be received and processed. Crude oil and liquefied petroleum gas will be shipped by tanker to the world. A pipeline, 120 miles long, laid in water up to 500 feet deep, leads out to the Ninian field. The Viking Piper, one of the largest and most sophisticated semi-submersible pipe-laying barges ever built. 40-foot sections of 36-inch pipe, the largest yet laid in deep water, coated with cement for weight, are welded together in a continuous string. Each joint is checked with X-rays and sealed with more cement. The barge moves forward, gently lowering the big pipe to the ocean floor. Viking Piper can operate in the high seas typical of this part of the world and is held in position by a sophisticated computer system. Slowly, 4,000 feet in a good day, she makes her way to Ninian, laying the last section of pipe on May 28, 1976. Loch Kishorn in the Scottish Highlands, soon to be the birthplace of the giant central platform. And though the gargantuan platform would dwindle to insignificance amid the remote landscape of the Scottish Highlands, its construction here would leave a mark. The objective? To build what was needed in the least disruptive way. The site is remote, a mountainside away from the nearest village of Loch Carron. Local people work here. The project brings new jobs, money, and revival for an aging economy. Yet the project is out of view, and Loch Carron retains its serenity. The round platform base covers a total of 3 3/4 acres. To improve its footing on the seabed, it features a reinforced skirt, like a giant cookie cutter, that will slice 12 feet into the ocean floor. Once the base is finished, it will be floated out to deeper water. And as flotation tanks are built, it will be slowly lowered. The tanks will be capped and eventually will disappear below the waterline. The central column and its surrounding breakwater wall will be slip-formed as the structure lowers. Finally, a steel deck will be installed atop the concrete structure. Prefabricated modules hoisted into place, and the Loch Kishorn monster towed out to sea. Work in dry dock brings the tower to 1/4 its final height. It is ready to be moved. first step of its journey will be 3 miles to deeper but still sheltered water. There, steel, concrete, and ingenuity will sculpt a modern wonder, half again the height of the Great Pyramid. Another dry dock, 65 miles away, on the eastern coast of Scotland, at Nig Bay. The southern platform takes shape. Many of the tubular steel sections that make up this platform are rolled from solid plate as much as 4 inches thick, heat-treated for added strength. Its ingenious design was originated by Chevron engineers, and similar platforms already dot coastal waters of the world. Lying on its side, it will be a seagoing craft, floating on 2 large legs. In the summer of 1976, literally thousands are at work. In fact, thousands on the central platform alone. Even this one piece of the puzzle is a truly international effort. 50 separate companies are involved. Manpower, skills, materials, and knowledge flow into the Highlands from Britain, France, the Netherlands, Japan, Scandinavia, and the United States. Concrete, made from materials quarried nearby, is mixed to exacting standards on a barge and pumped to waiting workmen. The breakwater wall and central column lengthen. When a section is set hard, the forms are slipped up and filled with more steel and concrete. Flotation chamber covers are cast in sections and raised into place. The breakwater wall, too, is topped off with precast sections. The platform becomes a partly submerged skyscraper. Time, precious at the outset, becomes more dear. Delays have many causes, all frustrating, and not the least is the harsh weather of the Highlands.
At Ninian, we have one of the worst weather environments in the world. And I think we've planned and catered for that. But one of the things that I think did surprise us was some of the weather problems we've run into at our fabrication and construction locations. The worst example would be the storm we suffered shortly after we went out into the wet dock. Some of the barges that were anchored at the platform broke through one of the dome covers. One of the barges that had a concrete batching plant on it sank, and we had to search Europe for a suitable replacement batching plant. In a way, the weather tends to test all the other systems that you have at work. For example, up there in Kishorn, we had a storm one night when a keeper pin had been lost out of the crane down in the precasting yard. When the wind came up that night, this large gantry crane actually blew over. It's just another example of how unforgiving the environment, even in the West Highlands, is.
Nig Bay, the southern platform, is complete. As water floods the dry dock, the curious creation rises to float free. Its next contact with solid ground will be at Ninian. For now, it is a strange but seaworthy craft. It will be towed to its station 260 miles from Nig Bay, and by controlled flooding of its hollow legs, settled into position in 460 feet of water. Once in place, the southern platform is a solid foundation for 21,000 tons of production and drilling equipment. 18 prefabricated deck modules transform the platform to a self-contained complex to drill 42 wells, produce the oil, and pump it ashore. They contain technical equipment and quarters and facilities for a crew of about 175 engineers, operators, drillers, and craftsmen. The northern sector of Ninian will be produced from this platform, also constructed at Nig Bay. A smaller, more traditional design, it is loaded onto a barge for its voyage out to the open sea. At Moray Firth, northern Scotland, the final major piece of the puzzle takes shape. The deck truss for Ninian Central. 7,100 tons of steel framing over 1.5 million cubic feet of space. According to plan, on November 1st, 1977, the giant deck completes a trip by barge around the northern mainland to rendezvous with the monster of Kishorn near the Isle of Skye. The concrete base is ballasted low in the water to receive its crown. Prefabricated modules are hoisted into place, each a model of space and weight-saving efficiency. 23,000 tons of drilling rigs, equipment, and a 3-story hotel for more than 150 workers. The components have come from all over the world. They hold a power plant sufficient to run a city of 50,000, oil and gas treating equipment, utilities and pumps, communication equipment, a helipad, and soon to be important, a command center worthy of a great ship at sea, with food, water, and fuel enough for its 50-man seafaring crew. The path to Ninian has been surveyed and resurveyed. The epic journey will take 12 days. Once the monster reaches the open sea, bad weather could be disastrous. The project's own weather station provides a forecast update every 6 hours.
Expect the winds up to 25 knots mean speed with frequent gusts around the 40-knot mark.
A gathering armada of vessels, strange and ordinary, large and small, converges on the floating platform, waiting for favorable weather and a change in tides. 8 tugboats idle about, 86,000 horsepower, waiting.
Yes, I know it. I have it in the picture.
Finally, the anchor chains are freed. The tugs positioned. Friday, the 5th of May, 1978. The final mooring is cut. The word is go. The Odyssey begins.
That's what I'd say. That's what I'd say.
Its total weight now is 601,000 tons, and 2 more modules will be added later. It is the largest man-made structure ever moved. The flotilla will follow exactly its predetermined course to the Ninian field. Three years of construction climax in a flawless, 12-day, 516-mile journey to a perfect landing at a remote spot in the North Sea. 100 miles from land, in 460 feet of water, the central platform will settle within 10 meters of its exact intended location.
It's one of the most difficult, most complex projects that the oil industry has ever undertaken. We've tackled problems that we haven't even seen before and tackled them successfully. We can expect this experience will be extremely important to us as we attempt to involve ourselves in the many frontier areas of the world where major oil fields may yet lie waiting to be discovered.
The central platform and the whole of the Ninian project are symbolic of an heroic commitment. The challenge has been met. To reach out into even the roughest seas with the best people and technology the world has to offer, to accomplish tasks once thought impossible safely and with respect for nature and the needs of people, to provide energy for a busy world.